So the Simucube mystery product is actually a new pedal. And yeah, I also was surprised only 1.5 years or so after the first ActivePedal to see a second version. But this is the ActivePedal Pro, and the old ActivePedal is now known as ActivePedal Ultimate, following the typical Simucube naming scheme. So first of all, thank you very much to Simucube for providing this unit early for review. But as always, Simucube does not have any impact on the script, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. So I think we will start with the price. It's now not extremely expensive, it's now only very expensive. It's quite a bit cheaper than the ActivePedal Ultimate, but it's still not cheap. We're looking at the price of 1,483 euros for one pedal. The two pedal set being 2,934 euros, or what I would probably recommend, the bundle of the passive throttle and one ActivePedal Pro for 1,764 euros. Plus, for all these prices, you have to add your local tax. I would recommend just go to the Simucube website, check your local price. There's local pricing in dollars, in British pounds and euro, well, depending on your country, how much the VAT is. Independent of where you are, you can use code DAN5 on checkout to save 5% on the whole price. That way you save some money and you also support the channel. So if you already know everything about the ActivePedal, here's my very fast summary of the review. It has a little lower maximum travel and a little lower maximum brake force. The rest is just as excellent as the ActivePedal Ultimate. The OG ActivePedal has this little flip chip here on the top that, depending on in which orientation it is, you either have a high power mode or a low power mode, which also affects the maximum travel. In high power mode, you get a total of 150 kilograms of total pressure and a maximum travel of 62 millimeters. Whereas in the lower power mode, you still get 120 kilograms of maximum brake force, but a travel of 79 millimeters. Well, actually, just got information from Simucube, and the Ultimate will be updated via firmware update to 170 kilograms, but still anything over 100, in my opinion, is more than sufficient. But yeah, back to the review. On the ActivePedal Pro, we do not have this little thing that you can turn upside down. On the ActivePedal Pro, we just have a simpler design. The travel is 74 millimeters and the maximum braking pressure is 110 kilograms. And if you ask me, that is probably more than sufficient for 99% of all people. I typically run my pedals at around 60, 70 kilograms. I used to run higher, probably around 110, 120 years ago, but I personally found out that for me, lower brake pressure and more travel works better. Another difference, the new pedal is even larger than the old one. It's about 2 centimeters longer. Wait, you can't see it like this. Let's put it let's put it this way. And if I align it on the front, you can see this one here is the Pro. It's just 18 millimeters longer, I think. Probably negligible, but keep in mind, these are giant pedals. I had to move my rig a little bit further away from the wall. Typically, if you don't have a restriction in space, this shouldn't be a problem. It still mounts perfectly fine to basically any pedal plate. You don't have to use all 6 holes. You can use just the 2 in the front. That's what I do because I'm too lazy to add 6 screws. More than sturdy enough, but yeah, they are kind of big. What else is different? The ActivePedal Ultimate has 5 years of warranty. The ActivePedal Pro has 3 years of warranty. On the back, you can probably see it here. The ActivePedal Ultimate has 2 power supply connectors because you can daisy chain. You just need 1 power supply and then the other 2 pedals basically connect to the other pedals. So you go with the power supply in one and then it's a little link cable to the other pedals. On the ActivePedal Pro, that's not possible. If you want to have 3 pedals, you will have 3 power supplies. A little bit inconvenient because these power supplies are actually pretty big, but once you route it on your rig and hide it below the rig or something, not a big deal. And then I actually found this out when I was researching the difference between these pedals. The ActivePedal Ultimate has these 2 screws that you can loosen and then have a slight mechanical offset of the pedal angle. You lose that on the ActivePedal Pro, but honestly, I wonder if somebody even used this because you can also do it in software. Like there's a setting in which angle the idle should sit. Obviously, when you put it more to the back, you do lose a little bit of the travel that is available, but let's be honest, 74 millimeter or whatever the Pro has is definitely more than sufficient. I think I run my throttle at around 50 and the brake at 25. But yeah, if you like insanely long travel, well, with the Ultimate you can get 4 or 5 millimeter of more travel. The adjustments, the mechanical adjustments, are the same. You have the screw here, you can loosen it on both sides. Ouch. And then you can adjust the angle of the pedal face in relation to the pedal arm. I have never ever done that. I just leave it in the default position at the back here. Also interestingly, no Torx screws, but regular hex screws on this one. And then for the pedal height adjustment of the pedal face, same thing, 2 screws, again, hex instead of Torx. I know that's insanely interesting for the review, right? But height adjustment, similar to the ActivePedal Ultimate, there are 3 predetermined positions where it will slightly lock into place. If you use third-party pedal faces, it's most likely not available on those. But then again, is it really that useful? I don't think so. The big thing is you can adjust it in height. You can also put it in between 2 of those lock-in positions. And yeah, but the middle one works fine for me, especially for the brake. If I would use this as the throttle, I would probably put this slightly higher or mount a bigger pedal face. You can get several different pedal faces. There's the new TK edition, which looks very nice with a little stop on the side on the throttle for your foot. Looks good. Also not super expensive. I think they're around 50-60 bucks or so. But yeah, 18 degrees adjustment in angle and 20 millimeter of adjustment in height. Then if we look at the rear again, you also have 2 external pedal inputs. What you can do is like connect other load cell throttle and clutch pedals here. I don't really know why it's a load cell input. Most clutch and throttle pedals probably use a Hall sensor. You cannot connect those. But the Heusinkveld throttle, in my opinion, Heusinkveld Ultimate, one of the best throttles you can buy, can connect to this. But also the Simucube passive throttle obviously uses a load cell. And then you can just connect it in the back here and you're good to go. And we'll probably also run this setup here for the review with the passive throttle. When I did the review, I thought it was nice, but the spring was a bit too weak. In the meantime, there's an accessory available, which unfortunately is not a stronger spring, but is a little damper kit, which also makes the pedal a bit stiffer, especially if you run high damping. I do wish that this would mount a little bit higher up, because even on the highest setting, the damping is not insanely strong. It's noticeable, but not as strong as something on Ultimate pedals, for example. But with a damper, this throttle actually is very nice, and I've been using this for the last few weeks and can highly recommend it. The last element, we haven't looked at that closely on the Ultimate or ActivePedal review. The Simucube Link box. What is this? A little box that goes from Ethernet to USB-C. I guess any Simucube accessory in the future will run the Link box. And what it basically is a protocol translator between USB and Ethernet. Why is that good? Ethernet has galvanic isolation. You will not have any issues with EMI ground loops or other grounding related problems with this, because the signal basically is not directly connected for an Ethernet connection. Think of it like a optical connection similar to that. It still uses a cable, but the chips inside here will make sure that there's no direct connection between the ground of the USB and the ground of the Ethernet. So I've been using these pedals for the last 1.5 years, had 0 issues with grounding or anything else regarding noise. Also, if you have one of these, you can connect any Simucube wireless wheel to it. Like, for example, you now run an Aztec bass, but you still have that old Usher Simucube wireless wheel. You can connect it to this and then use it with any bass. I think that's very nice that they offer that now. I don't think they advertise it very well. When I did my wireless, I don't know, I think it was the Usher Artura review. I didn't even know that. But yeah, that's another feature. It works well. I wish it was built into the pedal itself, but it makes sense to have this standalone from an ecosystem perspective. Still, it would be a little bit cleaner if it was built in, but this is also fine. The bundles mentioned earlier all come with this. If you get the bundle with 2 ActivePedals, you also get an Ethernet switch, because this obviously only has one Ethernet plug. And if you want to add more than one pedal, you will need a little switch, but it comes with that included. If we talk about build quality, it is a Simucube product. Build quality on all of them has basically always been excellent. ActivePedal Pro is no exception to that. The build is really good. It's massive. It has this matte black aluminum finish, which just looks amazing with the orange accent. Big fan of that. It's also made in the EU, in Estonia. I'm not saying that made in China would be worse quality or anything, but it's still nice if stuff gets made locally, I think. We do have bearings in all the pivot points, like here, here, in the back where the load cell is mounted. The load cell is covered behind this plastic, not as exposed as on the Ultimate anymore, where we have this S-shaped load cell here with a big cable. Cats probably love it. On the Pro, everything just looks like a second generation product. This is not like better than the Ultimate, but you can see that some of the stuff they are doing here is more refined. You don't see the servo motor anymore. It's hidden inside this enclosure. You don't see this ball, how's it called? Ball screw guide rail, forgot the name. It's all hidden inside this nice metal enclosure. We'll have a quick look at the electronics. It's exposed on the bottom behind this nice cover, but the principle is the same as on the Ultimate. Load cell now covered with a smaller cable. Cats will probably still love to eat it, but it is what it is. The pedal face itself that it comes with is a little bit different to what comes on the Ultimate, but it feels very nice. It is a little bit slippery if you just use it with your hand, which you will not do on a pedal. But driving with socks, driving with shoes, perfectly fine. I like the size. For a throttle, I would probably go with a slightly bigger pedal face. But for the brake, I saw no need to replace this. On the Ultimate, I've used these SimCore ones, a little bit bigger. Also very nice with this texture. Can recommend either, but with this, I felt no need to upgrade to this, even though eventually, I think in the long run, I will run the passive throttle and the ActivePedal Pro on my rig. And I probably use this one here because it is still slightly bigger, slightly more comfortable, but these ones are great. All right, we'll quickly have a look at the electronics. I'll not disassemble it completely because I don't want to. We can still get a good glimpse at the electronics itself. We will not really get to see the ball. Wait, what? Ball screw guide rail though, but we can see it on the Ultimate. You probably saw it on pictures. Same principle here. Okay, this cover can go off, and then there's this little plastic cover for the electronics, and this is how it looks on the bottom. It's probably very unspectacular. We have the connection for the servo motor here. Goes to these metal plugs on the PCB. This cable is the encoder of the servo motor. Think of this like a little Simucube. It also even has the same design of that Simucube. Then braking resistor that will get rid of energy if you basically turn the motor with muscle force. So if you, for example, go on the brake and you make the motor turn, it will generate electricity, current, and that will be burnt in that orange brake resistor. Little Atmel ARM processor here. But it looks all very, very good, very clean. Simucube knows how to make electronics. That's nothing new here, and no exception here. The, I still don't know the name. Ball screw guide rail is here on the top side, hidden behind this cover on top of the electronics. But like I said, I'm not going to take it apart further because it's just exactly the same working principle as on the Ultimate. Alright, so how does an ActivePedal work? For that, I'll actually show you the ActivePedal Ultimate. The Pro works exactly the same. It's just easier to see here because the servo motor and that screw ball bearing guide thing is exposed. So this principle is based on a servo motor that drives this little screw thing, which basically creates the counterforce of the force that you put on the pedal face. And by doing that, it is insanely easy to adjust the pedals. It's one click of the mouse. I'll show you in the software later. You can get nice force feedback effects like ABS, tire lock, and other things. And the motor driving this guardrail is only responsible for the travel and effects, obviously, but the whole measurement of the pedal force is done by the load cell. So this is a closed loop system with some clever algorithms, which makes it feel good and have easy adjustment, and everything that you can think of a pedal, these pedals will do. I mean, obviously, if you use it as a throttle or as a clutch, maybe I should point that out, you can, like every pedal can do everything. Like this can be a throttle, this can be a brake, this can be a clutch, this can be whatever. I think most people will probably get one of them for the brake, because this is where it has the most effect, where it makes the most sense. But there are also people with 3 of them for throttle and clutch as well. And yeah, all the pedals are mechanically identical. The only difference, if you configure it as a throttle, if you configure it as a clutch in the software, it will not measure the force on the pedal face. That makes no sense. It will measure the travel. It has also been possible to have the brake in a travel measuring mode before, but they removed that. I still think it was a neat feature. Some people actually like to have a brake with travel measurement instead of force. Doesn't really make sense, but only because it doesn't make sense doesn't mean that some people prefer it over what objectively makes more sense. And with this working principle, it's super easy to customize the pedals to your liking. I always recommend, like, it comes with tons of presets. Ignore all these and start from scratch and see what every slider does. We'll hop in the rig in a second. I'll explain the software to you, tell you what slider does what. We've covered most of it already in the ActivePedal Ultimate review, but if you're new to this, if you're interested in the Pro, you probably haven't seen the Ultimate review. I will do that again. If you have seen the review, it might be a bit boring, but just skip ahead or deal with it. But with this principle, you can basically go from a 110 kilogram 5mm brick style formula brake to a 50 kilogram tons of travel road car brake with a mouse click. And yes, you do get all the effects, but for me, this is the big thing that an ActivePedal does. You can get effects on basically any pedal set these days. Add a butt kicker, add Simucube haptic reactors, rumble motors, tons of possibility. Simucube has great effects. Simucube actually has probably slightly better effects than Simucube does. I still think Simucube is slightly ahead in that department, but only with an ActivePedal like this you get the adjustability, and this really is the key point for this. It's not the fact that the pedal will vibrate if you're in the ABS. It's nice, it helps a ton, especially if you're not a super experienced racer or if you're not that fast. It helps to feel how to trail brake and stuff like that. But really, the key factor is adjustment. Do not underestimate how important a properly adjusted, especially brake, is. And yeah, on other pedals you can also do a lot of adjustments, but it's sometimes hard to tell what actually is better for you, because you set something up, then you need to crawl under the rig, change the setting 5 minutes later or so, you test it again, you already forgot how did it feel before. It's hard to describe in words how big of an impact that actually has on your performance on track, in my opinion. I mean, of course, some people might disagree, but for me, this is the key factor of ActivePedals. But talking about effects and everything, I would say we'll hop into the rig. I'll show you the software. We'll do a few laps on iRacing, and that's just easier to explain than here at the desk. All right, so the software is exactly the same. It's the tuner software. We are on version 2.4.2. Should release very soon, I guess, when these pedals are out. This should be out. We do have the passive throttle on the rig and the ActivePedal Pro. First of all, I quickly restarted the pedal so you can see the cool startup animation. It's actually a requirement that machines like this need to be started manually. You cannot automate it. Every time you start the PC and the pedals have been shut off, you need to start them. But look at that cool animation on the brake pedal on the camera. Isn't that cool? Did I say animation? It's obviously not an animation. It's just, it cycles the whole pedal travel through and then can be used. But we'll start with profiles. You do get tons of profiles when the software ships and you install it. I would highly recommend to ignore all of this. The good thing about the ActivePedal is how easy it is to adjust. So, I mean, obviously, if you're interested in, hey, how does an AMG GT3 feel or stuff like that, give it a try. But I would highly encourage you to play with the sliders, see what they do, and tweak it to your personal preference, because everybody has different preferences. If I now load the profile from Luke Bennett, I do not suddenly become a 10K driver, unfortunately. It can help as a rough reference what other people use, but I still would just like, I'm repeating myself, but make your own profiles. So this is obviously the profile management part here. I have one profile for GT3 cars typically and one for LMDH. I didn't recreate it here because I haven't driven LMDH in quite some time, but they do not differ that much. But here you can save a copy, load the profiles, import, export, you get the idea. Then for the throttle, which is connected to the back of the ActivePedal Pro, you can do linear mapping. That's what I use, or you can also use a curve mapping. For example, if you want to have your initial throttle application to be a bit faster than what one-to-one mapping would be, you can also limit your output, but obviously don't do that on throttle. I use a linear mapping, so basically nothing in this. And then for the brake, first of all, configure on the old, or let's say on the ActivePedal Ultimate, you could select in which direction this flip thing is. I mean, even if you set it wrong, it still worked, just the values displayed for force and travel might not have been accurate, but here you basically get to set what you use the pedal for handbrake. Interesting. So this is a brake pedal, and then I set it to -4 millimeters on the pedal arm adjustment. But if you look at the camera here, you see what it does. -11 would be the pedal to the very front. And that is that pedal angle adjustment that I talked about earlier, that you had some option on the ActivePedal Ultimate mechanically. Here it's only via software, so you do, if you want to put this very far to the back or so, you do lose a little bit of travel, but then again, I mean, this is insanely far back, 48 millimeters, and we still get a little bit of travel, which would probably be enough for a brake, but I like -4 or so. I always like to have the brake pedal a little bit further to the front compared to my throttle. So save position, and there we go. Then we have the pedal feel. This is not the mapping of input to output that you know from, like, for example, from the throttle here or from other brake pedals. This is actually how the pedal travel relates to the force you need to get it into that position. So for example, if I set this to 11 kilograms, then to get to 50% of the travel or so, I need 11.8 kilogram of force. And you see, right, actually, no, this is obviously smoothened out a little bit. So to get here, we need 18 kilograms, 50% roughly, or 53 here, so 22. And you see, we have the 22 kilograms, but we do have 33% output to the game. So if we would go high here, oops, this does not make too much sense. Still 50% of travel, 46 kilograms, 77% output to the game. So currently we do have, I think, yeah, we do have a linear mapping from load cell reading to game output. So the linear mapping is, this would be the graph that you use on other pedals to adjust your curve. This is basically the graph how your elastomers or spring would feel on other pedals. I like to use linear here these days. I run travel on GT3 cars like 34 millimeters. On LMDH, I typically go more to like 23. Maximum force currently 65.7 kilograms. This is so nice on these pedals. Like, let's say you want to have 16 kilograms. Like, it's one mouse click away, 110 kilograms. Interestingly, by the way, if I go to 110 kilograms and I push over it, you see it's 120 kilograms, but the pedal still doesn't move. I don't know it, but I would assume it's probably the same servo motor as in the Ultimate, just a weaker load cell, but I don't know. That's just a guess. But nevertheless, 110 kilograms. I mean, this is painful for me to use. So if you're insanely strong, if you like to torture yourself on the brake, maybe get the Ultimate. But for most people, the Pro will be just fine. I will definitely leave the Pro on the rig. I do think it feels a little bit smoother than the Ultimate, but that might be because the Ultimate is 18 months old. The Pro is obviously new. I've had Pro and Ultimate side by side on the rig for testing. I used the Ultimate as the throttle and the Pro as the brake. It might be in my head. They feel very, very similar. I had a slight impression that the Pro might be a little bit smoother, but I can't really like say with certainty that that is true. It's just like my subjective feeling, but I wouldn't be able to tell it apart in a blind test. No chance. Feels very, very, very similar. But yeah, so 65-ish kilogram for me. Pedal travel, like once click away, you see now we have 67. Like Morad uses a lot of travel. Apparently the real car has that. It feels good to me. It's probably nice to trail brake because I used to be in the camp of the pedal needs to feel like a brick and you need high power. But the more I played around with the settings and actually tried what I like and not listen to random people on the internet, I found out a lot of travel and not so high maximum force is better and faster for me. So yeah, again, I can't say that enough. Play with these settings, especially this part here. Try the presets here first for the pedal feel. I've seen a lot of people using the logarithmic. For me, it's fine, but I always struggle in the lower percentage output region here. So I like linear. Then preload is pretty much how much pressure you have to put on the load cell before. Like this is 2-in-1. This is dead zone for the load cell and the value when the pedal will start traveling. So when I go over the 24, now the pedal arm will move. And now everything over those 24.8 will be sent to the game. I'm not sure if this is new. No, wait, here. You can also do it independent. So for example, set the preload to 0, so the pedal will start traveling right away. But it will only send inputs to the game starting at 5 kilograms. So this is your conventional dead zone for the load cell, but I typically leave this at the lowest position and just work with the preload at 2.5 to 3 kilograms. Then next next box, end stop feeling. It's not that noticeable. It's pretty much how hard or soft both the front stop, that means when the pedal goes back to the 0 position, or the backstop feels. I like to have medium on both. Set this to hard, hit the pedal to the maximum, set this to soft, hit it to the maximum, and then you can tell what it does. Then damping, I talked about it on the Ultimate review. Very, very nice that you can adjust it for pressing and releasing. I like to have a lower value for pressing, and then for releasing, I run a higher value that helps with the trail braking, in my opinion. For GT3, I probably should increase this now as well, because it's something I recently, like after somebody in chat mentioned it, discovered. You're not supposed to go onto the brake too fast in GT cars. I've been doing that. Somebody mentioned it. I've tried to work on it and I improved quite a bit by going slowly on the brake. Something with the weight transfer, don't ask me details, but end of the story. You can adjust the damping individually. So if I set this to 100%, it will be harder to go from 0 to 100 on the brake. And same thing, look at how fast the pedal goes to the 0 position. And if I set this to 100%, it will just be slower. They did tweak these values because I think the extremes were unusable and more extreme in the past. Doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Then friction, I still think is just kind of not very useful. It just feels as if your pedal is sticking. I don't know. Then the input mapping is this relation between load cell readout and value sent to the game. I have it on linear. If you like to do this trickery for GT3 cars, for example, that you only want 80% maximum output, you can do that. I would not recommend it on a pedal like this, but you can have linear, you can do, yeah, you get the idea. You can do whatever you want with these pedals, whether it makes sense or not. Then motor vibration is, well, you feel the motor vibration on the pedal. I think on the brake, not really useful. On the throttle, in my opinion, also not really useful. But if you like to have that as an immersion factor, you can do it here. You can test it. Wait, I don't know if you can hear it through the microphone, but yeah, not for me. Then ABS. Can you? Yeah, you can see that in the camera. See, this is what the pedal will do when you're in the ABS, and this can potentially make you faster, because if you brake too much, if you can't feel or know when the ABS hits, this will help you feel that limit, because on iRacing you do not want to use the ABS. I don't know if that's realistic or not. You can argue in the comments below if you want to, because helps with the algorithm, you know. People always get heated up about that. But yeah, it helps with trail braking to feel how you're supposed to trail brake. I highly recommend to have this on. Play with the settings. Frequency is, look at the camera, 6 Hz, and it will just get faster. The higher the frequency is, obviously. Intensity, yeah. Even a value like 10% already is noticeable. I like to run it like here. You see it in the telemetry output to the game, but I haven't seen any decrease in brake performance. And like I said, typically you don't want to feel this, like you don't want to brake as much that you actually use the ABS. So once you use the ABS, that you feel it that much that your brake trace will be a little bit worse, then, well, your braking isn't good anyways. So yeah, smoothness is basically, think of a sine wave, a perfect sine wave at 100% and a square signal at 0%. That's kind of a little bit how the smoothness feels like. I like to run relatively low smoothness. It gives that hammering effect that at least my road car does when I hit the ABS. But yeah, traction control obviously on the brake makes no sense, but it's similar to the ABS effect. You have intensity, frequency, no smoothness, but obviously only makes sense on the throttle. Then G-force is a very interesting effect. It basically simulates that G-force pushing you forward onto the brake pedal feeling. Can be immersive, can be slightly distracting. Try it out, see if you like it. If I'm not driving too competitively, I mean, I never do, right? But if I'm not tryharding, I like to have this on. But I think with it off, considering that we do not have G-forces in a rig, I'm faster with it disabled. But yeah, what it basically does is just simulate you getting pushed onto the brake pedal, onto the belts, stuff like that. Try it out. Brake threshold vibration, very simple. If I turn this on, the moment that I reach a certain brake strength, it will vibrate. I'm not sure if this is working correctly here right now. Oh wait, I still had the ABS on, so I was like, huh? Why does this trigger at 30%? What this does, the moment I go to 80% brake input, like roughly here, you can see it here, 80. You see it in the signal. It will just, you will feel it in the brake. Can be useful to set it to like practice threshold braking. Set it to 75, for example, and then you can probably do like dry training with this. Dry, yeah. While you're not on the track. Talking is hard today. It's not telemetry driven. It's a very dumb effect. Like you hit 75%, the brake pedal will vibrate, and then you have the same adjustments, intensity, frequency, fade amount after the initial bump. It's like you have an initial push, and then it gets less. If you have this to 0%, nothing happens. If you have it to 100%, you only feel a quick here, little, as if somebody is hammering on your foot one time, and then you know, okay, I'm over it now. And then the slider in between is well, adjusting between those two extremes. Then brake lockup doesn't work on iRacing. I wish it did, because it's useful on cars without ABS. It's pretty much, I mean, brake lockup, what is it? The pedal vibrates when you lock up. Works, for example, on R-Factor or LMU, I think. Very useful on the LMP2 there, for example. I think all the cars do not have ABS there, but I found it most helpful on the LMP2. And then same thing as for ABS. Intensity, frequency, no smoothness. You have the activation sensitivity, which basically lets you, if the pedal vibrates after your brake locked up, well, it's like, yeah, cool. So I locked up, too bad. You typically want to feel slightly before of that so you can adjust the threshold where this effect will trigger. But this only works on, well, basically everything except for iRacing. SimHub somehow made it work. Simucube, please give us an API to interfere with SimHub. Would be great. Would be great. But you can't use it on iRacing, unfortunately. Also not on BeamNG Drive. But on most games it works. This is the list of supported games, by the way. So we have AC, ACC, Automobilista 1 and 2, BeamNG, F1 games, Dirt Rally, WRC, Forza, Live for Speed. That was my first proper racing sim. Good old days. Then Limo Ultimate and R-Factor, iRacing for some extent, Project Cars, Race Room, Richard Burns Rally, and WRC Generations. That doesn't mean that the pedals do not work on other games, you just do not get those telemetry-based effects. Something like brake threshold vibration will work independent of telemetry, but for example, brake lockup, ABS, you need the telemetry from the game in order for it to work. So yeah, that's it for the software, I think. I mean, add devices. When you add a passive pedal to your active pedal, you go to add device, passive pedal, what the maximum? Oh, because it's here, and then you can select the port. I have my throttle in port 1, so port 2 would still be available, and then you can select the roll, clutch, for example, calibrate. Obviously there's nothing connected, so I can't calibrate, but yeah, here. You just do the calibration, push it, release it, okay, and then add a little bit of dead zone at the bottom and at the top. I use something like that. You just do not want to have flickering here, and then increase it maybe 1 more % to have a little bit of safety margin from the flickering, and then the same for the maximum. I would, like, you don't see here, if I push it really hard, it goes to 100. If I just go weakly to the end stop, I'm at like 99. You don't want that on the throttle, so yeah, give yourself a little bit of safety margin there. And then firmware update, well, it's the firmware update, and here you can see if the game is properly connected. If you do not see simulator connected here, you will not get any telemetry effects. But yeah, I would say we'll do a short lap here at Spa. Holy moly, this is loud. Game, let's make it quieter. We're on the GT3, the new McLaren around iRacing at the updated Spa. Still kind of loud. And to compare the ActivePedal Pro to the Ultimate, to be completely honest with you, for me there's no difference. I would recommend save yourself the 800 euros or whatever the price difference is and just get the Pro, unless you know you need really, really, really high brake pressure. And then you can see, wait, let me actually increase the ABS to a level that makes no sense, so it's easier to see in the telemetry. Telemetry graph is the thing on the bottom here from Cabs, by the way, if you're curious. But yeah, you see this little curvy zigzag on the brake is basically what you want to avoid. And it's just a very, very good practice tool to be able to practice trail braking and threshold braking, because you don't want to ever get into that region. We are driving very slowly on purpose here, of course, because like when I talk non-stop, for me it's hard to focus on the driving. It's different to streaming, interestingly. But yeah, throttle with a damper, I can absolutely recommend it. Feels great. We have the motion enabled, by the way. That's why the camera on the pedal looks a little bit funny. Yeah, I was talking about Pro versus Ultimate. Honestly, I would save the money. Just get the Pro with a passive throttle. Add code DAN5 to get yourself 5% off, both in the official Simucube store and also on SimRace Shop. And the bundle is 2,000 euros then, including taxes, which still is a lot of money, but I think it's worth it. I've definitely invested more useless money in my sim rig, and this is something that I think will make you faster, because if you're a super fast driver already, if you have perfect threshold braking, if you know how to trail brake and everything, then this will probably not help. I mean, it's still a great pedal set. It's still probably the greatest pedal set that you can buy. But I don't think it will make you any faster at that very high level. But if you're not at that level, like probably most of us are, I mean, I hover around 5k iRacing, so probably slightly or like above average, but still I'm 2 seconds away from the crazy aliens. And for people like me or slower, it's a very valuable and helpful tool, because it's just you feel the brake. I mean, obviously in ABS cars, unfortunately on iRacing, no tire lockup. It works well with SimHub, so iRacing, no, not iRacing, Simucube, please. API with connection to SimHub would be great. But yeah, they are amazing pedals, and it's still a lot of money, but I mean, 2,000 euros for the set is better than 2,500 euros for one pedal. So you can also use your existing throttle and save some more money. But the Simucube passive throttle is a good throttle. It's a little bit on the pricier side, but it's a good throttle. But yeah, I don't want to like make this too long on the track, but I love these pedals. They are the best that I've used, and I can highly recommend it. Just don't compare it to normal pedals with haptics, because the ActivePedal part is not, I mean, yeah, the ABS in this case is possible because it's an ActivePedal, but it's not the main benefit. The main benefit is you're driving here and then maybe you use the iRacing active reset feature and you want to test, hey, maybe it's better for me if I have only 10 millimeters of travel for the brake. You adjust it, you directly get the feedback, or you try like 67 millimeters. Holy shit, this is a lot. But actually, probably I should try to get used to that. I think this is actually faster for me, because you can just like easier trail it off. Oh. See, this is exactly what I mean. This is probably something that you would never ever try to that extreme on regular pedals, but with the ActivePedal, you can. And with that being said, we'll go back to the desk for the conclusion. Alright, ActivePedals, independent of the version, has been the best pedal set that I have ever used. I've had these on my rig for 1.5 years now, basically since release, and I used to hop a lot between different pedals. I still test the occasional other pedal, but typically it's only for a brief time and then they get thrown off the rig again and the ActivePedals come back. I've never been as happy with any pedal set than with the ActivePedals. The Pro to me feels just as good as the Ultimate. It has the same pros, it has the same cons. It is a little bit loud, you can probably hear it. I mean, when you're driving, especially with headphones and stuff, you don't hear it. It's not a big deal, but it's not a silent pedal, because the mechanical friction between this guide rail thing is just not inaudible. But apart from that, this has just been, for me, the perfect pedal set, and I don't think if you get one of these, you will ever need another pedal set again. The price is steep, but I do think the ActivePedal Pro together with the passive throttle for $299 in Germany, including taxes, or if you use code DAN5, slightly below 2,000 euros. Yeah, it is a lot of money, but some people spend that money on a steering wheel or so, and you definitely get more for your money if you invest it into good pedals. Yes, there are pedals for 300 euros that potentially can work just as well for you, but you lose the easy adjustability, you lose the effects. While it is a lot of money, I mean, we are talking about the upper end of the high-end market here. I personally think if it doesn't hurt you too much financially to spend that much on pedals, go for it. My recommendation would be passive throttle, ActivePedal Pro. I'm repeating myself here. But with DAN5, 2,000 euro including taxes in Germany, I think that's a good deal for the bundle. The code also works on SimRace by the way, channel partner, also works on other products, not everyone, but just try DAN5 on SimRace. It gives you a discount on quite a few products. But yeah, there currently is not really any competition to that. There are a lot of pedals these days with haptics, SimMagic or the P1 Sim pedals that I just recently tested. You can basically add haptics to any pedal set, but it's not an active pedal then. It's still a normal pedal set with haptics, which gives you some pros, but you obviously do not get that big benefit of the adjustability. There will be the Moser M Booster active pedals coming soon. We do not know the price, we do not know the release date. They look promising. I like their design with the servo motor in line with this rod that connects the pedal arm to the pedal base. Looks very nice. Knowing Moser, it will probably be priced very competitively, but we need to see if it's as good, maybe even better, who knows, as the Simucube pedals, and we also need to see when it releases and how much it will cost. But as of today, there's basically no competition to this. If you're feeling adventurous, if you like DIY, if you want to save some money, there's also a nice DIY project for active pedals on GitHub. I'll put the link in the description if you're interested in that. You can basically build your own for quite some savings, but obviously you need to like DIY, you need to design the pedal yourself. It's only the software package pretty much. There are some recommended hardware designs, but it involves a lot of 3D printing and 3D printing a pedal arm. Not so sure about that. It might work, it might not work. But there is that. Also some nice pictures to get a better idea how an active pedal works. Apart from that, I think there's nothing that comes close to these pedals. I do wish Simucube would open the API for the active pedals. I still think, Simucube, you're missing quite the chunk of the market share here by not having a rudder mode. There are some, like, I mean, I'm a sim racer, but I've recently started to fly, and it seems like every sim racer knows everything about flying. So I think there's quite an overlap between sim racing and the flying market. And every sim racer, or like most sim racers, have a nice rig. Maybe they want to use their rig for flying as well, but planes do not use car pedals, planes have rudder pedals. Why do we not have a rudder mode for this? Just like link 2 active pedals in a rudder mode, maybe simulate the toe brakes just when you press on both pedals. I would love to see that. Please, please make it happen. And also another thing, maybe open the API and have compatibility with SimHub. SimHub has some effects that just work better than what Simucube is offering. For example, wheel lock on iRacing. Not possible with the Simucube software. I know iRacing doesn't really give you the data, but I don't know what exactly SimHub is doing. There's a really good approximation of when the tire lock is happening, and it can help if you use haptics with SimHub. And I would just love to see just the compatibility with SimHub. Maybe just release the API, somebody will make a plugin. But yeah, to sum it up, 18 months or so with active pedals, 0 problems. It can help make you faster, and it's just the best pedal set on the market, and I don't see how this can be beaten or improved in the future, to be honest. They have my 100% recommendation. They are great pedals, and yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm very, very, very happy with my active pedals. And if it does not hurt you too much financially, go grab a set and test it yourself. But that's it for the review. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, or just post something. That always helps with the algorithm, you know. Like the video if you liked it, or even if you didn't, you can still like it. Subscribe to the channel to not miss any future videos. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye bye.